Welcome, everyone, to the Mind Viking. I am your host, Eric Engberg. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. And while you're at it, please click on the little bell icon so you're notified anytime a new episode goes live. In this episode, I have as my guest the Rhinestone Heiress, Miss Morelia Cuevas. Morelia comes from fashion royalty. Her father, Manuel, is a world-famous fashion designer, and her late grandfather was none other than the legendary rodeo tailor, Nudie Cone. In this episode, we will peek inside Morelia's star-studded world, or should I say rhinestone-studded world, a life that has brought her a lot of joy and laughter, but not without some pain and sorrow along the way. Morelia, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
I am doing good.
Good.
I am doing good. So I'm digging the backdrop there. You want to give us a little history on what's going on back there? I see a jacket suit with all the rhinestones and.
Yes, it is. Sometimes I like to use some of my clothes as a decor in the house.
Yeah.
There I have a jacket that I have worn or wear often or every once in a while. It has a lot of fun motifs on there. And right above it are also a pair of my favorite rhinestone heels. I love heels. I have them all over the house. I have always used accessories and clothing as part of the display and art of my house. So like I have some really cool stuff in my office, old nudie boots that I wore as when I was younger, and a few other fun, treats that are all throughout the house.
Cool. So yeah, let's dive in. So what's the story behind the name, the Rhinestone Heiress? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was something I kind of created on my own, just for the fact that I have such a, interesting history doing that. My grandfather is Nudie, the rodeo tailor. He was from Kiev and came here to the United States. And also my father, Manuel, who's also an immigrant who came from Mexico and came to the United States, which is, the ideal American dream. They both came to the United States and pretty much became famous, and doing their craft and doing it quite well. And, I've always had, I love my name, Morelia, which also has a wonderful meaning, but the whole purpose of Rhinestone Heiress was I wanted to kind of put a combination of the two backgrounds that I have and kind of put it together and kind of defined it as one because it's who I am and my history, and honestly can say that, I'm the only Rhinestone Heiress. I have Nudie as my grandfather and Manuel as my father. And, I just didn't want to have to always have, oh, you're so-and-so's kid or this and that. I just kind of had my own identity. I didn't have to use any last names or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've always been that way, as long as I can remember, even as a child.
Yeah. So for those who may not know, the significance of the impact that both your grandfather Nudie and your father Manuel have had on the fashion industry. Who are some of the big names in both film and music, or just entertainment that because in a little bit more backstory, your father Manuel married to Nudie's daughter, your mom.
Yes, that's correct.
So I'd imagine it for some time there, your father was actually working with Nudie, and then there was a point where he went out on his own. But combined, I know that they've designed clothes for some huge names. So you want to share with us some of those names?
Sure, you might have heard of Elvis Presley, for one. We're very famous for the gold lame suit. Of course, the Lone Ranger for his mask. Of course, Graham Parsons, which most people know the whole, marijuana motif, poppy seeds, cross and tattoos and pills on the jacket. My family really has been working with so many artists since the late 30s. So when my grandfather started, of course, which is Nudie. In fact, he started off making rhinestone G-strings for burlesque dancers, which kind of, yeah, which kind of escalated in many ways how he got the name Nudie. So they say his born name is Nootka Corklandco, but was given the name Nudie Cohen as he came into the United States from Ellis Island. But a lot of rock and rollers, cowboy actors back from the days of Republic Studios, fellow presidents, King, everybody, everybody and anybody.
And I'm gonna help you out a little bit because I did a little research. So Elvis Presley. So if you're an Elvis fan and you remember that gold lame suit that he wore on the cover of 50 Million Elvis Fans Can't Be Wrong, then Nudie designed that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And my father worked on that piece during that time as well. In fact, my father always said that was one piece that he didn't, that it wasn't the most a favorite piece that he worked on, believe it or not.
Sure.
But because it's actually lame, so it's not the most bearable fabric, but it's probably one of the most memorable pieces ever.
What is lame?
It's very fray. It's really hard to explain, especially right here without showing you something. But but the whole thing is it's not usually the most flattering, fabric either. But
and it's heavy.
No, it's not heavy.
No? Okay.
It's just harder to work with because it frays a lot, from sewing it and so forth. But that is one of the most remarkable and memorable suits that actually Elvis wore. My father did work on two other like jumpsuits and the comeback special piece, that black leather piece. But there was maybe a couple of pieces that you might have seen that were used in movies and stuff like that, more of the Western style. Or during the days of nudies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Johnny Cash, the man in black. Tell us the story on that one, just real quick. Yeah.
Well, my dad he's the one who kind of created that whole imagery to make him the man in black. It has that typical black on black cavalry twill, real heavy, strong fabric. He was really known for that oak leaf and acorn embroidery. You might see up close on some of the pieces. He was definitely a presence. When he would walk in, you could not help but not miss him.
I read on Wikipedia that so apparently so I guess your dad was kind of he was the one that designed the suits, and I hope I'm remembering this correctly, but apparently sent them to Johnny Cash, and Johnny was like, these are great, but they're all black. And then that became his hallmark, his signature look was, and everybody knows him as the man in black. So Gene Autry, Graham Parsons, Elton John, Kid Rock, Kenny Chesney, and man, this one really made me stop. Ozzy Osbourne.
He came in, yeah.
Did he? Yeah. That is cool.
I didn't see him that day when he came in, but I would have loved to have got to meet him. But I've met a few characters throughout the years, which are
and I want to talk about one. I want to talk about one in particular. So, as a little girl, you saw many stars of film and music come into the Nudie's store there in Hollywood, but one of your fondest memories is of an encounter you had with one Clint Eastwood. Oh, yeah. So how old were you, and what do you remember? What made that encounter so special?
Well, first of all, I'd say about maybe 8 years old when that happened, give or take. Clint had came into the store. he was doing some filming in the store as well. And, I was told to be hush hush, not supposed to speak, kind of was, on the down low for that. And I just could not wait to chat with him. I was so enamored by him. I watched, movies, and I wanted, oh God, I want to be an actor, I want to do this. So towards the tail end of the day, he pretty much told everyone to step back, and he pulled me aside and took me into the boot room, one of the rooms that were at Nudies,
Yeah.
and pulled me aside and took me in the room alone, and we just chatted. I mean, it was so memorable that I couldn't tell you the full on conversation, but it's funny to me today because I have met people later in life who've been principal actors in films and stuff, like just bumping into someone in a bar, having a conversation and telling them this story. And they're like, he doesn't talk to many people very much. He must have been very impressed by you. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just that kid that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was determined.
And I think about it, and maybe the attraction there was, being that you're a kid, sure, you knew who he was, but you probably weren't just like totally starstruck.
No,
Like
not at
so
all.
many people that he encounter, I'm sure were, so it was like, hey, I can be kind of a regular guy around this, this little girl. So let's see what she's got to say, maybe, I don't know. Um,
That's how it's been most of my life. A lot of these people who have come in become friends and family, even though they were clients, and ours continues to be clients, most of these people. They really come into our world, as friends. And that's how they were encountered into our lives. It wasn't about like, oh, this is the guy on TV, or this one or that one. It was never that way. I was never taught or brought up to it was just a norm. That was my norm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we're gonna take a little bit deeper dive into kind of what life was like for you when you were younger. But I want to have a little fun here first. So in the spring of 1983, the teen romantic comedy Valley Girl was released in theaters, and the vernacular of America's youth would never be the same. It starred an up and coming Nicolas Cage as a punk rock kid from Hollywood who falls for a pretty young girl from the San Fernando Valley. Morelia, you were born in LA, and when Valley Girl was released, you were a young teenage girl growing up in that same San Fernando Valley. So I guess that makes you a original, true Valley Girl, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes, definitely. I am a true Valley girl. Yes, born and raised in California, and went to school in the San Fernando Valley. So definitely, that movie does have a impact me. The '80s,
Yeah.
very important part of my life.
So how accurate was it? And I know, and I did a little research, and apparently, they kind of got the inspiration maybe from Frank Zappa's song "Valley Girl." So is that how y'all talked, or what? Tell us. I'm
Sure,
really intrigued by this. I really am.
I'm sure I had a few of those slang and statements to say back then, more than anything. But it was there's it's actually really true. I mean, I am true an '80s girl. I live that '80s vibe. I mean, I think is one of some people probably argue with me on this one, but maybe not the best fashion during the '80s. But I had fun with it, and it was the one hit wonders, one of the most creative times, to say at least, because we had VH1, MTV, and people really had to be creative. Today, technology takes over. So once you take out the plug, what happens? And that is during the era I am I am very resin to, and it means a lot to me, because even with my own craft, I know that it's still there without all this electronics and technology. And I went to school during a time without any of this, so this world has totally changed.
I know. I'm just a couple of years younger than you. So I grew up in the 80s too. And VH1, MTV, back when they actually played music videos,
Oh yeah.
man. And yeah, it was just a neat time to grow up and yeah, I mean, I look back on the 80s and kind of the how it helped mold me, and yeah, it definitely was a cool time. So, and I remember watching this movie, and I probably watched it several times. It was a good movie. I looked and did some research on it, and it only cost like $350,000 to make the entire movie. And then there were some issues with rights to the songs, and they had to go back and pay an additional $250,000 just for the rights to the music. So almost as much as what it cost to actually film the entire movie. Okay, so you graduated high school in the mid '80s.
Okay.
And went to college, with aspirations, kind of making your own mark on the world. But things kind of came to a screeching halt when you learned that your mother had been diagnosed with cancer. And you then took on the role as her primary caregiver and helped care for her until she finally lost her battle with cancer in the summer of 1990. And you shared with me in an earlier conversation, you said, Eric, my mom is the core of who I am and was one of the greatest souls ever. So what made her so special? Tell us.
So true. So true. I mean, my mother really lived lives beyond life since she died at a very young age. She died at 52, which is the age that I am today. And truly is the core of who I am. I mean, my mom raised me. I got to be a child. I really got to have that gift of being a child. And maybe sometimes it was maybe a little bit much being overprotective, and, which we'll probably talk about later. That put some effects on my life today. But really, it made me who I am. I to attain life, a home, just the day-to-day stuff that you need to learn. And I really was blessed to have a woman who was my mother that was in my life and really wanted to be a mom, and everything that I did, she lived her life for me, and that's really true towards her final years. Uh, Always, I mean, we joked about this in the previous conversation about the fact that here I live in I lived at the time, of course, in California, and I didn't even drive, And by the time my mom died, I was 22, but it was during the process of being 21, the ideal age that we probably all couldn't wait to be at one point.
Yeah.
But I did not know how to drive. I mean, that's unheard of, not to have a driver's license in California. And, I kind of always had a friend, a boyfriend, or somebody who would drive and take me around, or my mom took me here and there. It was never even a question.
Yeah.
And when she got, when she was more and more ill at that time, I made the suggestion that for a Christmas present, I needed to take driving school. So, but it was interesting because after my mom died, my actual driver's license came in the mail. So that was kind of, it was weird, but,
Yeah.
but, it has such a strong meaning. I really had a mom, I had that someone in the household, I mean, it was hard. I am a divorced child, and that's something that's very difficult to go through as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a wonderful father. I love him dearly.
Yep.
And, but it's different when you're that kid that, is in that type of situation. And especially during the time when my parents were separating and divorced.
Yeah.
I was like the first
How
divorced kid in school.
really?
In grade school, I was kind of one of the first divorced children. So, but once I had left elementary school and went into junior high, everything and anything was going on, and that
Yeah.
was kind of the building of everything that goes on from one parent household or somebody else, like a grandmother or
Yeah.
what have you is raising you. So that was very interesting for me because, I always loved going to people's houses that had all these kids and the mother, the dad at the table and all that. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit different for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So how different was it? Now, are you meaning it was different because your parents were divorced, or was it more just because of your family name and your grandfather being famous? Um, was it more that?
Well, it was difficult. I mean, I was a young girl, about almost 9 by the time my parents separated. I mean, back in those days, a divorce wasn't final until like a couple of years later. They were officially divorced in 1980. Once I went into junior high school and I got accepted into TFA, the Television Theater Fine Arts Magnet, and that was very important to me. But and it's interesting now because I have a relationship with my father in a different sense. I mean, my dad was not the type of father who wanted to be what he always used to call it. He goes, "I'm not going to be a weekend father." He wanted us to be able to see him whenever. He was always a part of my life. I don't want anything that's not to be present to be negative in any way. I mean, he was a part of all the things I did, from school plays, modeling, fashion, school, all the stuff. I did radio, whatever.
Yeah.
He knew all about all the activities and stuff that I did. I mean,
Yeah.
and my parents who were divorced, it was kind of funny because every time there was something revolved around me, they still matched. They always like, if my mom had a purple dress on, my dad had a purple suit on. It's like,
Really?
I don't. Everyone always knew who my parents were. I mean, immediately, and their humor
So
and.
so was that on purpose? I mean, would they
Well,
talk
no,
to
they
each?
didn't both like call each other up and do that. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
But it was like that from day one. I mean, I was the school field trip from elementary to pretty almost high school, actually into college. I still utilize my family background. We always had something that emerged with something I was doing. We had my grandfather has known for his Cadillac car that most people know. They were also Pontiacs back in the day, but I always called it the horny car, with all the guns and horns and silver dollar coins,
Right.
getting dropped off at school or picked up, in it every now and then. And, we had field trips at the store where we brought all the kids from school there. And they got to see a great witness of part of my world, just, the actors that came in and trick ropers and all this stuff that was going on. I mean, my grandfather introduced arts delicatessen to like 6-year-olds, like none of these kids don't really know what true delicatessen is. I do. I was brought up
Yeah.
on it, but that's
Yeah.
a story. But and all these things going on, and just like my life, I would just jump up on the cutting table and say hi to my dad, and I, being very vulgar, not afraid to say things. He taught me that at a young age, so I've always been very comfortable to kind of, speak out. I might not, a little bit more than usual.
Yeah.
He definitely brought that out of me. But it was just a whole different world to me. I mean, I when I look at it now, it's it's. I mean, it was always special, but you see it in a different light then as it's happening, it's like any kid, growing up, here I'm surrounded by one type of music, and then we grow and we have different, I went through the phases like I didn't want to hear country music, I wanted to hear maybe some dance music or whatever, like any other kid would have, and then, it reemerges back in your life. My friends who are a lot of these artists and who kind of bring it back and want to wear the stuff, again. And it's so full circle. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So normal for you, and like you said, you were the field trip.
Mm-hmm.
So Nudie, his store, which was in Hollywood, and it was
North Hollywood's on Lincoln Boulevard. Mm-hmm.
okay, and it was called the Rodeo Taylor. What was that the name of the store, or was it just called Nudie's?
It was Nudie's Rodeo Taylor.
Nudie's.
And we were known to have everything for the horse and the horseman. I mean, he had everything in there,
Okay.
Including he did the custom work, which were all the elaborate
Velvets
custom pieces that were always were known for in the stage wear. But it was a huge store. You would walk in, you could get your cowboy boots, your cowboy hat, a western shirt, dress pants, jeans, whatever you needed, even for kids. There were even things for the horse, I mean, I grew up and I learned all this terminology. I mean, when people look at me, they would never know. I mean, right now I live in the country as it is in Tennessee, out in Ashland City. So, I mean, I know I kind of come off of the glam vibe where I tell them I'm the Zsa Zsa Gabor of the country over here. So they kind of know when I go to the co-op, I don't look like the, I may not be dressed the part, but I learned a lot of this lingo at a young age, as I call cowboy vogue couture. I knew a boat, what do you call it, a boot toe or a hat block, or
Yeah.
I learned all that stuff as a kid, so it's kind of in me.
Right.
I'll spot one and say that's a J2 toe.
And you would actually work in the store, right?
Yes,
I mean, yeah.
As a little kid in pigtails, I used to get up and go on the cash register, the old school ones that look like, slot machines, as I call it. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I would ring up an order and like everyone would look at me and say like this little 5-6-year-old, whatever, is like, bringing up a $5,000 sale. But that was normal. I learned how to do that, so like it was kind of common. So, but later on in life, it was different when I actually had to go and I had a real job. I guess I went one time and I didn't understand the cash registers. It was spitting out and talking back at me, and I didn't know how. I'm like collecting cash the way I knew how to do it and write out everything. And
where did the cash go?
Well, it's always been a joke. I took a summer job as a teenager. I worked at Robinson's,
mm-hmm.
and the manager was nowhere in sight. The register wouldn't allow me, the typical long line, these women giving you weird looks, and we've all dealt with that in a store. And I knew the figures to add it up immediately, so I took the cash and I just stuffed it in my bra until the manager came back and they said, Morelia, you cannot do that.
Like my grandfather let me do it.
But that's what I knew. I mean, that was like so normal to me. And they're all like, you can't do that here.
Yeah.
But I had the correct change. So I didn't complain and I had a good commission.
That's funny. Yeah, but again, this was just kind of everyday stuff for you. So, you're either in the store, visiting your grandparents, or you're working. And I remember you telling me that, just about every day there was somebody famous in the store,
Always.
I mean, it was just, every day. And so, but for a little girl, that was just the way it, the way it was. And, your grandfather Nudie to so many was just this amazing artist, but he was just grandfather to you. So that's pretty cool.
He was, but he had a presence that about him. I mean, people were just coming in just to hang out. They were having coffee, they were having some type of stew that he made in the back, and you didn't want to know what was in it, but it was delicious. He always put everything and threw everything in it, and everyone and anyone was there. There were thousands of photos all over the wall. So I mean, not only did you see a picture, you always would see somebody. And there were musicians and actors all the time around. And as a young child, it seemed quite appealing to me, not realizing that they weren't working for the day. Which could be maybe a joke.
We're hungry. What a nudies.
But they came there they were just a part of the norm, you know.
Yeah.
They were in there, you know, playing music, and people would walk in, and I mean, that was just an awe, you know. That was just, I mean, I am so guilty today. I've been so spoiled to see live music and have people that are friends and stuff that do it, that, I mean, and then now I'm going to age myself, like, you know, you hand me a CD. I mean, now it's all different now. I know it's not even
Right.
CD stuff, but, you know, I haven't bought one in years. I don't have a clue.
Everything's online. Just stream it.
I mean, I really am. But, you know, it's so interesting on how to see things how they were at that time and where they are now. I mean, it was just so normal. People coming over for dinner. I mean, and then, you know, you turn on the TV. Wait, that guy is on that show, you know, or whatever, you know, and but it was very common, you know, just like you'd watch Uncle Jesse on the Dukes of Hazzard. He was Uncle Jesse in real life, you know, too. You know, I had tons of them were uncles, you know.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben Johnson, you know, they're John Wayne. I'm a little too young to mention that one, but, you know, but in a way, I remember them. But there were just something distinctive about these men that came into the store. I mean, very powerful. I mean, you know, Roy Rogers, Dale Evans. I mean, she sang the eulogy, you know, happy trails.
Yeah.
You know, at my family's, you know, burial, you know, so, you know, they were family, they were friends. I didn't look at it as a starstruck situation, you know. I mean, of course, later in life, there are people that I've gotten to meet that I maybe have admired listening to or seen, you know, that I know from my generation, as opposed to maybe my dad knowing who they are. But and that's always fun too. But, you know, it's just exciting, you know. But I've still looked at them as just being normal, and I think when you come off that way, you'd be amazed in how often people will just talk to you, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I know. I mean, I don't know anything else otherwise.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was trying to say. You said it perfectly. You know, with the Clint Eastwood encounter, you know, to you, this little girl, you're treating him, you know, like he's just some normal guy, you know. And I'm sure you just asked him some questions that, you know, anyone else wouldn't dare to think ask Clint Eastwood, you know. And he's probably like, yeah, man, I'm gonna have a conversation with this little girl, you know. Have some real talk, some real genuine talk, you know, that kind of thing. So that I'll bet you anything that's kind of probably what happened there. Hey, I want to go back to your mom. So in memory, I think this is neat. So in memory of your mom, you have a tattoo on your foot of all things, a fried egg. So why a fried egg?
Well, when my mom was ill and you know, and she had to take her medicine, I would always quick fry up an egg, and it kind of broke down the anxiety and easier to take the pills. And during her final days in the hospital, she had shouted out, "Quick, go fry me an egg." And the private nurses had, you know, made comments and asked if any of us knew what that meant. And so I, you know, told them, I go, yeah, I used to whip up and fry up an egg for my mom. So it's, you know, it's an emotional thing for me. I have a lot of egg art. People do a lot of fun stuff for me and give me cute things with the eggs, and it has a sentimental meaning. And I know she's with me at all time, and I love it. It's definitely a conversational piece. I mean, when I first had the tattoo, every once in a while you get a smart aleck, of course, to ask you why you have I'm trying to be polite here. Why do you have a fucking egg on your face? I go for my fucking dead mom. When you say that, believe me, things change so differently.
Yeah. Now, is it on the top of your foot?
Uh-huh. On my
Oh,
top
that had to
right
hurt.
foot.
That had to hurt.
You know, it's funny, but I didn't feel like it. Well, the more on the top of it a little bit, you kind of feel it. But for me, getting a tattoo, this is going to sound crazy to others, but it reminds me of the embroidery machine. Because growing up and being around all this stuff and hearing the embroidery machine constantly running, the same sound of the tattoo machine when they're holding it in the hand and they're going over and over again in the space of where they're doing the work is exactly a similar sound of the embroidery machine. So I look at tattoos as embroidery.
Way.
That's a selling point for
Gets
all
you
the
through the
tattoo
pain.
artists out there, but it works for me.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think was the greatest lesson that you learned from your mom, or that she taught you?
I've always been very true, honest, and loyal. Loyalty is huge to me, huge. And those who are fortunate to know me, in all honesty, they have a true friend. Now, will I say, is everyone always necessarily loyal to me? Not necessarily. I'm not trying to pinpoint anybody, but and I and if anything, my dad will always say that too. If you ever talk to him, or say, he'll always say, "My most loyal child," or she has such a loyalty, and I do, and I'd be probably one of your greatest friends. I could pick up and maybe not talk for years, but we can still be back at the same point, and there is so much truth to that, and it's very important to me. I also have that word tattooed on my body.
Do you? Loyalty?
I do, because it's very important. I'm very loyal to myself, so I I would only expect the same in return, as my father always taught me. It's taken me a little bit longer to get this one down, but it's true. A treasure does not do the hunting.
Yeah. I like that.
So, there's any good pirates out there. Doesn't hurt to try.
Hey, yeah. Let's just put it out there. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna get this one for that one.
That's funny. Hey, and I do want to touch on something. You and I have talked earlier, and so you've got this infectious laugh. You are, if you're at a party, you want to be by Morelia's side. You're just known for your bubbly personality. But you had also mentioned that you kind of use laughter maybe kind of as a way to compensate for, some of what you've, the not so funny things that you've dealt with in life. So explain to someone like me, who can oftentimes be just a little too serious, what is it about laughter that kind of helps you, deal with, some of the tougher things that you've dealt with in life?
Well, first of all, it's really helped me. I mean, I'm fun, and I know I'm funny, but then sometimes I don't. I think most people feel this: are we really that funny? But or I could be the punt of the joke every now and then, because I always seem to bring the laugh and the joy to the party or what have you. But there's a lot more seriousness to me. I have a real strong heart. like I mentioned before, being very loyal. And, I've endured a lot of, pain, and I'm not out to blame anyone. There's no one necessarily to blame. Sometimes it's just growing up in the family that I've grown up in. It's hard, I've been brought up where I was overprotective, which in my case, it worked out fine by being overprotected. I didn't out rebel myself or, get in things that were, per se. Maybe later on in life, I feel like I'm more 21 now than I was then, but, at times. But in true honesty, I, being in the family that I've been in, and the battles of some of the things that adults dealt with, I felt I had to endure sometimes as a child. And, I am a split image of my mother and my father combined. There's no doubt where I came from. But, and I've been blessed to have a lot of great characteristics that they both have. But, when my parents started to separate and divorce, it was very difficult because my father worked for my grandfather, which was my mom's father,
Nudie.
and yes, Nudie. And there was a lot of things going on, controversy. My dad ended up going on his own. He was about 3 blocks down the street.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, inner tension, adult conversation. But, I dealt with it a lot. In fact, I don't know if I did share the story with you or not, but, and it has such an effect to me as a child. And I'm not pinpointing who did it. I don't know. But in the store, like I mentioned, there were always tons of photos all over the wall. And there were pictures, my dad were in a few, and of course my grandfather Nudie and stars and what have you. But when things were getting more and more, when my parents divorced, my dad went on his own, every once in a while I saw a little Nudie sticker that was covered my dad's picture on a lot of these frames. And, for me as a kid, I just don't feel that I should have to endure that, and I remember peeling off the sticker. And, eventually maybe someone was smart enough to put another sticker on there. But after a while, someone, caught on and one time cut out the photo and put a sticker behind the glass. I don't know who did. I'm sure someone did it for. But
now these were pictures where
in the store,
in the store.
And that's something I feel like as me as a child shouldn't have to endure. It's something that a story that that I will share in a book as well one day. That's been in the process, kind of working on as it is. But it it's just something I should have never had to deal. That was an adult issue, not a child issue. And for me, that was hard because, I love both sides of my family equally. And I was generally raised mostly by my mother's side of the family. So I had that, Jewish upbringing, background, backbone, who, I've always learned to respect who works for us or what have you. It's always given me the ability to do what I wanted to do, to an extent. But at the same time, like I mentioned to you at one other time that, I was meant to be cute and quiet, Guess what? I'm cute with a big mouth.
which kind of was more of a rub on your mom's side, your grandparents. And I remember you telling me that because the store was their livelihood. And so, when you're in the store and you've got all these big names coming in, there was an expectation, right, of how you're supposed to act and say or not say or anything like that. And yeah, you were the antithesis of that.
Actually,
Yeah.
I have a funny one. I didn't tell you this one, but one of my mother's friends reminded me of this one that used to work at Nudie's. I don't recall doing this, but I did tell the story to Willie Nelson one day. Uh, he got a big kick out. I actually was running up and down through the clothes, going, "Oh, the Indians are coming." To Willie Nelson. I did it to Willie Nelson.
Well, so Willie was in the store, huh? Did he have his
Yeah, he had his braids.
his braids? Oh man, gosh, you say that and it's just so, man, that would have been so neat. I mean, obviously, being a part of that family has come with, some struggles, but definitely, a lot of perks. And
Oh yeah, there's a lot of perks.
yeah, to be a fly on the wall, and listen to, you were saying that a lot of musicians, they would just do these kind of impromptu sets. I bet some of the best music was heard, at your grandfather's store.
I mean, they had a spirit. I mean, people were just coming in, and I mean, it was so common. I mean, I remember at the time, Billy Idol used to walk up and down Lancashire Boulevard all the time.
Really?
Someone like that would walk in. And that's more my era, but and it was just like, people would walk in and shop or come in and talk, and it was, and it really, that hasn't stopped really, because it's the same thing happens even today with being around my father, and at his store, everyone likes to pop in at that last minute of the day, and it becomes kind of somewhat of a festive hour, you can kind of say,
Sure.
and everyone comes in and says hello or visits, um and I can honestly say that I think a lot of people will agree with me on this, that people who've come into our lives, if they've been a client, a friend, someone who's come in to learn the craft, they can honestly say I think they learn more just in spirit of life, being around my family,
Yeah.
more than initially, hi, I'm the next designer, or I'm this or that. Because I always say that, because the majority of people who've learned under my father are still continuing to learn. Some of them do things to different levels, obviously, or some didn't even do it at all. But it's just like what they learned from the experience of being around my family.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. There's like a socialism vibe of this whole livelihood that I can't even explain to some people today, especially these younger folks that don't understand it, on how things were always settled, the business deal, or how things happen. I mean, I come from a world where, that was such a norm. We were, it was just happening right in front of you. I mean, I can't even really explain it. I mean, things like when I think back, like with a great example, maybe I'm kind of going on back and forth here, but like in the news, when things kick in that are more current in the news now, kind of have an effect to me about things that happen to me, and I did mention this to you about when Princess died.
Yeah, I'm
And I
glad
know
you're talking about this, because I did definitely want to talk about it. Yeah. So finish.
Yeah, when Princess died, um, it resonates a reality to me, and that's not very common to be a reality, but like even when you saw the two princes, back behind the coffin, and they're going through, and the whole ceremony, the newspaper articles, the television, all that going on in the news.
And I want to interject real quick, just to add some context here. So Princess Diana, she died in 97. Prince Harry was just 12 years old, and Prince William was 15, the same age that you were.
Yes, I was
when your
15.
grandfather Nudie was laid to rest. Yeah, so I wanted to give that context there.
Yeah, and watching that, I totally related to it. I mean, I don't know how common it is that me and Prince Harry are going to talk, or, or Prince William, but I totally got it. I mean, when I see that image, which is a memorable image that a lot of people have seen, it repeats itself all the time, of her anniversary and what have you. But when my grandfather died, it was very similar to that when I saw that happen. And I go, God, that's such a norm to something that happened to me. I mean, I remember us at Forest Lawn in Hollywood Hills, and there's still cars coming off the freeway entering into Forest Hills. And this is being televised, a lot of times when someone in your family dies, it's not always televised, as you know.
Yeah.
And, and, being in the newspaper, it was spoken of for days. It wasn't just like, oh, hi, this and it's
Yeah.
done and it's over. It was rolling and rolling, and it was interesting. I don't know if I really understood it all as much at the time as I do more now. I mean, I was young, and I was a lot more of a younger 15-year-old than most anyhow, but you know it was interesting because I totally connect to things like that seems so normal to me.
Yeah.
And the more and more I think about it, sometimes when I meet people, they don't there's this one thing that they don't get. I know that most people may not live an eighth of my life up to age 8, and it sounds bizarre to even say that because I'm not even, but it's hard because what's normal to me is not normal to the average, bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the funeral there, according to what I read, a lot of that were still alive of, the celebrities, film, music that Nudie
We're all there.
designed for, they were all there. So there was definitely some parallels, not at the scale of Princess Di's funeral, but, in the fashion world and the entertainment world, I mean, it was a big deal. And so, they came, they showed their respects. Here you are, 15 years old. You're again, in a situation where it's like, it's kind of surreal. It's your normal.
Mhm.
And, and then here you're seeing Prince, Harry and Prince William, and, just having that, there's some type of special connection, you're like, hey, I kind of get it, and, yeah, I mean, I thought that was interesting. And so I'm glad you brought it up, because I mean, I can only imagine, what was kind of going through their mind at the time. And you probably, in some
I related
respects.
to it. I mean,
Yeah.
over a decade or more later, when that happened. But it it just seems so surreal. I mean, that was it kind of made me understand things differently and seeing it from that perspective, I guess. I don't know. I mean, life for us at our house was like, we had one of the garages was called the wedding chapel because, Merle Travis got married in the guest house, or at the
Yeah.
garage, which was the wedding chapel. We had the wedding chapel at my grandmother's house. I mean, we had all these, there was always something going on, if it wasn't at the home, it was at the store. Mostly the store was, the main thing, but we always had people over for dinner. It was just a norm.
Yeah.
And, even though I was protected from a lot of it because I was very young, um, I was still exposed to some of the things that were going on. But I, like when we talked earlier too, my mother was a really protectiveness of that. I think because my mom had to be so grown up while that was going on, when she
Mm.
was a child in my grandparents' world, as it was beginning to become what it became.
Yeah. Because
I
she
think
she
that's
had to
why
live through
she
that same
sheltered
thing.
me more so I'd be protected from that.
Yeah.
I really believe
That
that.
makes sense.
I mean, she grew up quickly. I mean, my mom even dated Elvis Presley. I mean, come on.
No way. Are you
Yeah.
serious?
She went
What?
out. I have a great picture.
You joke with your dad and said, Dad, Elvis, things had been different,
Yeah, well, my older sister says that too. I mean, she was probably more about that than I was, but
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. I did
What?
tell the story to Lisa Marie when I met her, but I'm sure she got so accustomed, like, somebody dated her father. And when I thought about it, then I thought back like, oh God, when someone says that to me, oh, I dated your father. Oh no, I don't want to hear it.
Stop.
Thank you.
TMI. Yeah. Well, hey, so I'm glad you brought that up. That was definitely something I wanted to talk about. I just was intrigued by the whole story there, and the similarities, the parallels there. But hey, so along with being definitely an integral part of your father's business, you are also a broadcast professional, voiceover artist, event planner, and one of the most sought after hostesses in Nashville. But you also sit on the board of directors for Nashville's Women in Film and Television. So tell us, what is the mission of, and the acronym is WIFT, for Nashville's WIFT, and how long you've been a part of it?
Well, I've been a participant of the Women in Film for the last few years. My dear friend, like family to me, Linda Evgen, is the president, and kind of brought me in, and I've always helped out. And then eventually I became on the board. This year is going to be interesting because we're going to have a summit, which we weren't really sure if we were having a summit, so that changes most of the time every day. So, and here I am, like, the one who does events and everything and helps on that. But I'm going to host one of the panels, and that's supposed to be going on in October. But each and every day, the dates and times are changing. It's been really weird this year, as you know, with the COVID-19. We'll have to get you on there. Now that I'm talking, I'll have to get you on one of the panels. But
Cool.
It's going to be
All
nice.
Right. Hey, everybody, you heard it. You heard it. I'm gonna hold you to it.
But and it's going to be live, and people will be able to ask questions. We'll have different actors and artists and producers, people in PR, people in different forms of production. It's always great. It's a fun thing to go to. When you can go to it, it's going to be different this year because we're going to be doing it like we're doing this right now. I'll probably host my segment from my house, and everyone will be wherever they are, But I'm excited about it. It's just been so different because it's like, I'm so used to doing something and planning something, and now I can't really plan much of anything because we can't have major crowds, and stuff. So that's been hard, but it's I really have enjoyed being a part of it because now I'm getting more into wanting to pursue more or less my career. I never overly ever try to overly hide, this is what I want to do. Everything has happened somewhat semi accidentally, or someone has overheard me, or a good example, and this still needs to be fixed, and maybe this could happen today when I say this. Okay. None other than, I didn't know who I was talking to at the time, this was many years ago, had approached me and said, I love your voice, and you just have this great diction and the way that you sound, and you should do cartoon voices. And and I'm just talking to him like I'm talking to you, not knowing who I'm talking to this first time, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Ends up being John Lasseter.
Okay, you're gonna have to school me.
So if he's listening, he needs to remember that. Well, I need to get one of those cartoons because I was meant to live forever. I would need to be in the Disney Vault somewhere.
So who is John Lasseter? He's obviously someone.
Yeah, he created Toy Story.
Oh, did he? Oh my God, loves Toy Story. Oh wow. So you're talking to this.
I meant to be in the Disney Vault because I always said I was going to live forever. I was going to be that. I am destined to be in the Disney Vault. I have to be. It's always been my dream.
Yeah.
And I still have actually one of our older silversmiths from back in the day. I mean, he's obviously no longer living. Did these specialty belt buckles many years ago, and they were for Walt Disney. And I still have mine that was given to me as a child. It has my name on the back of it engraved. So I always knew from day one, from the connection through my family. I mean, you think being in this family would have been easy and like, I should have been, hey, I should have been on Disney, even though my mom was even friends with the net. Well, she lived next door to her at one point,
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
on one of the Musketeers. I mean,
yeah.
but
Yep.
it was a whole different era. I
Yeah.
don't think my family was ready for what I was to become. I mean, I was that. Oh God, this is funny. I have to say this because my kindergarten teacher. Uh, I mean, she's no longer living, but she reminded me of this story. Like after I finished school and everything, she was still alive, and she had contacted me and said, she goes, I will never forget you when you came into my classroom. She goes, you came up, everyone had to take a turn. We had a chair in the front of the classroom, and you all took turns to sit in it. And the reason why I'm saying this, because there's so many mannerisms from that moment, what I'm going to say in a minute, and then also from photographs that I catch myself doing today. So I really do believe we are what when we first, how we are as kids, have a big effect on what we're going to do when we're older in life. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to figure it out sometimes. But I sat down in my little short dress and my pigtails. I crossed my legs, she said, and I sat down and I told everyone, hello, my name is Morelia, one name only, and I'm going to be a superstar.
And that was kindergarten?
Yes. And it's funny, but my own father used to always tell me as a kid, if you tell yourself that enough, it's going to
Yeah.
happen. I always used to, I mean, I believe that. I know my time is coming. I've been close many times, very close to it. And, it's just something I enjoy. I enjoy do, you know,
So let me ask you this. So do you think that if maybe you didn't um, need to stop to care for your mom because you were in college, you hadn't yet graduated, but I know early on, seventh through ninth, you were attending a theater and film, you know, uh, school. I mean, much different than just normal curriculum. You explained that, instead of English, I think you had like screenwriting or something
yeah,
like that. I mean,
it was
this was,
amazing.
yeah, I think you described it as kind of a real, fame, if you remember the movie Fame. Um, and then, I think you did a stint at San Diego State that was kind of film, related. So do you think if maybe if that hadn't happened, and you kind of hit the brakes, understandably so, to care for your mom, do you think you would be more involved in television and film and that industry, or what do you think?
Well, honestly, I mean, how do I put this? When I went, I mean, those were some of my prime time of years. Junior high was such a fun time. I mean, it was such a great learning stomping grounds. A lot of those teachers had such and still to this day have a continuous influence on me. And then, of course, going to high school, it was a little bit different. And then continuing high school, I did continue doing, a lot of radio. I was like kind of the voice. I always laugh that I was the one who did the morning medleys on the intercom before you were probably throwing airplanes at, or whatever.
Yeah, the
And,
morning announcements. Yeah.
and I spoke for the school. So when I went after that, and when I went to college, I had a radio show in college,
Oh,
um, and started to do that. I enjoyed it, but then I got mad because I couldn't play what I wanted to play. I was always sneaking in music because, I'm sure you know this, in college you weren't supposed, it always has a big sign on the door, like, do not bring, whatever. Like, I was always bringing different things, and I go back from the days when we had cartridges, you know, you know, and it was definitely,
You're dating yourself.
I know, but I had fun with it, and but I used it to my advantage. And thinking, here I am, I'm from California, and so I used to go to the clubs before I was 21, and I would call in ahead of time, and so when me and a couple of my girlfriends can go, we'd come with clipboards. Oh, this is classic, and I'd say, "Hi, I'm Morelia." I think I went by. Well, I started off. They called me MC in the morning because I couldn't. No one would never get my name, well enough. But I changed it in the middle of the show later on and broadcast. I finally changed it to Morelia, the Spanish fly. Arríjate. Ay. No, every morning.
Really?
9:10 on KBCM. But
You got to do that. You got to do that one more time. Let's do that one more time. Come on. Come on.
I was known as Morelia, the Spanish fly. Arríjate. Ay. On KBCM.
That is classic.
Oh, no. It was beyond classic, to say it least. But but I would call the clubs so we could get into the nightclubs, and when these rock bands were playing, and so I could go in and ask a question or two so I could put it back on my radio show in the morning, which in college, I only had like an hour or two morning slot, like what was it, 9 to 11 or whatever. The guy before me was kind of like a Howard Stern style. I think he's kind of very similar to that. I just remember the guy who was before me in the mornings, but whatever. So I mean, I kind of used it as a tool. I was, for whatever, I always was able to get in. I had plan A through B. I knew how to get in and out of something if I had to. And we'd go to the nightclubs and the rock bars and Roxy and the Rainbow. We went in there, and I would ask, like, what was your favorite color M&M? I mean, as silly as these questions were, I'd come back on the morning in my radio show in college and start talking about it, but not realizing I was usually using it for me and my girlfriends to be able to go into the club and we could meet whoever was there.
You're on assignment.
I was on assignment.
That's great. That's great.
It worked.
Yeah. Did you?
I remember we walked in with clipboards. We were serious.
So did they give you any type of an expense account or anything like that?
No, but I made the best of it. I believe me, I found a way. I mean, that's when you can use clout after a while to say who you are. And then that worked later on, because later on, as I was getting older, where people actually started to figure out who my family members are, it was fun. I mean, I remember someone once telling me, he goes, "Can I touch you?" And
you're like, yes.
I was thinking like,
you may kiss my ring.
and stuff like that, or just to be funny. There's got to be a rhinestone on you somewhere. And I'd be silly and seek and search, and you shall find. I mean, I would always be sassy and funny. Doing that. It was interesting of people who would eventually come up to me and find out who my family was, and the conversations I would get and have about. So, if anything,
I bet you had fun with it.
Oh, I took it for the run that I could take it for. I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
But I wasn't the one. Even though people always think this, but it's not true. I mean, I had that stigma where, oh, she's so cute, she's somebody's kid or granddaughter or whatever. But I had my own merit. I'd go in there, and I only used it if I had to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it would be, they would tell a story. Someone would start talking to me, and I'd have to interrupt. And when they go, "Oh, do you know who this person is?" And meanwhile, they're talking about either my grandfather or they're talking about my dad. And I go, "Oh, I know them pretty damn well, And then after that, that also would happen. But I always would try to go in and do my own thing if I could. I did the best I could with that. I definitely used that radio time for that reason. But that wasn't really the path I wanted to go. I've always wanted to have a show, my own TV show, or do stuff like that. And it's kind of funny because when I didn't care and I went through all the phases, I always say go up and down, all phases of weight and all the different things in life. And I just said, I don't give a shit. After I hit 40, I get contacted just out of nowhere. And I have to say this story because it's even funnier to me because it's like all of a sudden someone gets what I've been trying to explain since I was like 19, 20 years old. I ran into someone who's very well known, and you'll see his name on TV all the time. And and I remember coming up and saying, I go, reality television is going to be the next biggest thing ever. It's going to happen. People are going to film. It's going to be cheaper. You know, you're going to find maybe a hidden talent. You're going to find someone. There's always going to be an asshole. There's an asshole everywhere you go. You know what I mean? You can't avoid that. You know. And I was kind of laughed upon and said, you know, oh, we kind of have it. It's documentary. And I go, excuse me. I go, you're no, you're totally discrediting any intelligence I have. You know, I go, first of all, I'm underage and I'm in a bar. And I met that person again many years later. I don't think he'll ever admit that I came up with that, but whatever. And I get approached. They wanted to do a reality show on me and then of my family. And, you know, we did some work on it, you know, then we had other people, you know, pursue us over the years. But, you know, it was a bad time in television. And one of our producers died in the process of filming. And I really believe that would have been a game changer, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knew I really wanted to do it the most because it was really my thing. And I kind of wanted to make a new twist of what that was back then. And it was a good time because it was before what's come out now. I still feel like we would have had a lot of control because I was asked to also be a producer on the show, which is unheard of when you first enter in that world. But I was really smart about it when we got contacted because I was contacted directly. And then they found out who my family was and the whole concept of the show went, you know, a whole 360, but it was still going to interact with them one way or another. But, you know, it was a lot of fun and, you know, and everything. But, you know, it's a lot of hard work too, you know. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see that definitely taking off, you know, I mean, because there's you know, my wife, gosh, what was the ones that she liked, Project Runway, you know, I mean, there's fashion themed reality type shows out there, you know, and you know, people in fashion usually, you know, are kind of flamboyant and yeah, they're fun and you know, just good personalities and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sure it would have made for some really good TV, and who knows, you know, it's
I
still.
mean, it was a fun concept when
Yeah.
they were working with that. And I've always had fun with anything I do that way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of just something I enjoy as a normal. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I at one point I was approached one time to work on a show, and they said, we'd we'd like to maybe hire some actors to be your friends. And I started to laugh, and I told this producer, I go, you know, I may have to have a gathering. I go, you have no idea. All my friends are characters. They'd be great. You know, I'd rather help the ones that need it too, like my fellow friends, songwriters, whatever they are, you know,
Yeah.
so we can all get our 2 cents in there, right? But, you know, at one point I was literally approached and said, well, we can get a couple of actors to be your friends. And I go, wait a minute, my friends are actors in their own right.
Call up Jeff Weber.
I love Jeff. He's great. Cowboy.
Yeah.
I always call him Cowboy Jeff.
Yeah.
He's too pretty.
Yeah. He is pretty easy on the eyes. He definitely is. He definitely is. And for those, you know, who might be wondering, that's how I came to know Morelia, was through Jeff. Jeff was like, man, you have got to get her on your show. So here you are. Here you are. Hey, in closing here, tell us what is up next for the Rhinestone Heiress. What's going on? You got anything cooking? I know you mentioned the book. Tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yes, I do. I have a very dear friend and mentor by the name of Grace Reinbold, and she has taken
Now,
me
I've
under.
heard that name.
Yes, and she has taken me under her wing uh, for some time, and many years. I met her back in where we worked together and produced a show with the CMAs. And Grace has been around the industry for a very long time and worked and booked with a lot of rock and rollers. And she's always seen that stardom in me, and I've been always appreciative to her. And she and her, you know, her later years now in life is wanting to, she wants to continue to, she started working on with me and writing a story about my life and some of the stories of my upbringing and stuff. So I'm excited about that, and I want us to continue to get that finished so we can have that out, and it'll be the next step for the things that I have cooking, that I've been cooking back in my little rhinestone world, I say. I, you know, I have a lot of things I kind of want to do that are just of my own. I do want to also keep the history alive of what my family has done, and for it to be well respected and restored is very important to me. I work on a lot of things that, besides all the fun and the giggles, I do have seriousness of what I've done. I've curated many shows. I've traveled. I've produced and worked on fashion shows as well. And I want people to know that I continue to do that kind of work, and I'm always available for hire for those things. But my ultimate main dream always has been is to be a cartoon. But and I intend to be before I go. There's because I'm that type of person. When I leave, you'll know about it.
So that's the ultimate, huh? That's the Super Bowl for you.
Whenever since I was a little girl, I used to run in the Walt Disney store and run into all the stuffed animals and say, I'm going to be a Walt Disney. I'm definitely going to be in the Walt Disney vault. I mean, how did I know what that meant then? But you know, I always would come up with stuff like that. I mean, I think I was always ahead of my own years, not even knowing some of the things that have come out of my mouth. I've had the question like, where did I think of that?
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome.
That meant like, the world to me, because I mean, it's so cool. You know, it used to be, you know, a lot of times it was just people you didn't know who did those things, and then you know, the cartoon world did kind of have a weirdness, and then they started using, you know, very well-known voices, obviously.
When did they start doing that? Not to get off in the weeds, but when did they make that shift?
They did that. Oh God, it's been over 25, 30 years maybe now that they've done that, at least. But you know, but you know, that was such a shift, you know, and it changed the world of that whole, I mean, how it is now. But I still think there's hope for people who have, you know, I've always wanted to be able to just someone to ask me to be my own self. I mean, I could do a lot of voices and things if I needed to, you know, on spec. But you know, it's just something I've always enjoyed to do. If anything, I entertain nieces and nephews and great nieces and great nephews with it on the phone or over Zoom, and they're entertaining.
Any notable Disney characters that
I mean, I've always wanted to create my own, and
really?
I have one. Her name is Malicious, and she's
Malicious.
Malicious.
So where is Malicious from?
She's I think she's kind of hidden in some type of candy world, believe me or believe me or not, because the way she comes out and what she says sometimes is too much. But she's very sweet and sassy, a lot like myself. I had a friend once draw a cartoon character of what he thought of me, and I laugh about this to this day. The guy that was drawing it, I once went out with his roommate. This is many years ago, and the guy goes, "You don't have it right. Wait, you need to make." I gotta show this. I'm gonna get myself in so much trouble. He goes, "No, you just haven't got that one part right. You need to make her boobs a little bit bigger."
Put it up to the camera just a little closer. Put it up. Move it up a little bit. Oh, there we go. It's time to laugh with
Morelia.
Yeah, they're pretty good size. Took me a while to focus in on them, but yeah.
You did pretty good.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
It's some accuracy, yeah.
Well, hey, where can your fans or new fans find you on Facebook and Instagram? Where can they find you?
On Instagram, I'm known as Rhinestone Heiress. I can be followed there. And of course, I have a Rhinestone Heiress page on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I'm Rhinestone Air on Twitter. You can also keep up with my normal self, Morelia Cuevas. I'm also on Facebook, but
Yeah.
I try to get people to lure onto the Rhinestone Heiress page, and so we can start adding more people on there and catching up with all the new stuff and some of this. I'm gonna start sharing a couple of stories every now and then on there, and I always keep people updated with what's going on in our rhinestone world. Or if someone who comes in that's new and exciting, and I show people how the rhinestone machine works. I mean, I still do that to this day. I go over and visit my dad and put rhinestones on things.
Yeah, I saw a video of you doing that. Yeah, that's cool.
It's kind of come to habit to me. I've been doing it as a kid. I just I do it so fast. I mean, it's something of nature. It's very natural to me, and I mean, I love the sparkle. I always tell everyone, "Sparkle and shine" is one of my sayings, and it's true. I mean, I want to bring a light and happiness to anyone. I am a fun-loving person, and that's just to be happy is important.
Yeah, it's clearly evident in just talking to you, even for a few minutes. I mean, you've been a pleasure to work with as we prepared to have your interview, and I definitely want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. It means a whole bunch to me.
I'd love to. This is so great.
And yeah,
so great what you're doing, and I'm glad
thank
that
you.
You got to get with Jeff, and also talking the fact that I've been out in Austin where you're at, so that's a lot of fun. I love that town. I have a lot of great friends and musicians that live out there.
Yeah. You probably had a whole bunch more fun in Austin than I have,
Oh, I had the blast. I always, well, maybe I shouldn't. Well, one of my favorite stories is Flaco Jimenez trying to get me drunk at 10 a.m. with me and my best friend from Buffalo, New York, on the bus. He was still trying to do that when we went. We're all like, we have a whole day yet, an evening to go see everybody. And for one of those old school South by Southwest back in the day, when there was actually Texana music. It was
yeah.
And that was in the early 90s when I did that.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun. But I mean, I've gone other times, but that was like the ultimate time to witness Austin, Texas, and South by Southwest, and none other than Rosie Flores telling me where to be and how to go and where to be at the right time. We were
that is so cool, man. I love me some Rosie Flores. She is just so cool. She is just so cool. My wife and I actually went and saw. She had a band called the the Hens or the Hen House or something like that.
Yeah, with the Hen House. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's just funky, man. Her music is just yeah. I really enjoyed the show, and I miss getting out. I miss getting out, and
it's the hardest thing ever. I mean, I make my outings semi-festive if I can. It's like you need to go to the market at the same time. Like to do stuff like that, I mean, otherwise I'm like rhinestoning masks for the COVID-19, which is the
you got one with you? Do you have one?
Actually, hang on. Of course I do.
Let's see one of those suckers. Yeah. Okay.
Of course I have an egg one.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Oh, nice. Now, these are all masks that you have designed.
My father has worked on most of them. I mean, I've helped, I've done some things like I've been taking a lot of these orders and incorporating my own 2 cents in some of them. I mean, of course, I do this one because my mom,
Sure.
I'm big.
Yeah. Now, do they have rhinestones on them?
Oh
Some
yeah,
of them?
they,
Yeah.
but they're
Okay.
they're like they're I can't speak English today. All the masks are done by my father. He still cuts and sews these
Yeah.
things. He's been doing them all throughout the pandemic. It's
Really?
just like, you know, my dad is not a person who does not work. That's all he does is work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow
Yeah.
I don't know if we all learned that work ethic as well. He has,
So,
but
the
yeah.
store right now, where's it located in Nashville?
It's in Berry Hill, Tennessee.
Okay. Okay. Or,
Um, he's right by all the music studios and stuff, and
yeah.
he's loving it there right now. It's a small studio, which is where he always is worked best out of, and
Yeah.
gets to do what he does every day, which he enjoys to do, which is a gift within itself, really, you know. And like I said, he started to make some of these masks, and he was doing a lot of them, you know, that he was just doing them, that they were all being given away and donated. Then I got in and I go, well, I need one. And then I put them on all the social media, and I got a
I saw
buzz,
that. Yeah. So if
and you
somebody
know,
wanted to buy one, are
yeah,
they
they
for
can go
sale?
ahead and they can email me at rhinestoneheiress@gmail.com.
Rhinestone
And
Heiress at gmail.com.
mhm,
Okay.
you
And
email
an
me,
approximate price? What do you,
they're about 150.
okay.
And they're, these things are going to be something, you know, they're really a part of history, you know.
And you can't put a price on safety,
You really can't. I know at first when, you know, it might have seemed at one point, you know, someone would think it might be high, of course, but at the time it really isn't, because these are like, you know, it's a part of history. I mean,
Yeah, they're
think,
a Manuel piece.
and you know, what's been really fun is some of the stories of people I've met who've reached out and emailed me. I mean, initially, you know, I'm just thinking, oh, it's something basic, whatever, you know. But there are some people who really touched me. Or I had one woman who knew me as a child, and I didn't even know that, and I knew who I was communicating with. And I mean, but they're from all over. I mean, I've had the oddest locations and people. Then there's some locals, and some of the locals I haven't even seen. And then I had theirs on. I have a friend that works in the market, and she said she saw someone with the Manuel mask, and you know, and it's so funny because everyone recognizes, you know, if it's a Manuel, you know, like, oh wait, that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I've had total fun with it. I mean, you know, I it's I have the joke about it with me. I have a few of them. It's like, you know, back in the day when you had the, what is it? You know, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know, all week underwear embroidered. You know, I'm like that with the mask. I have a fancy one for
Never
fancy
had that.
outfits if I
I
get to
don't
go
know
to
what
an
you're talking
outing.
about.
Like I went out to dinner at a nice restaurant, so I have a real fancy one for that, so I could go with dress outfits. I mean, I know that sounds kind of vain. I mean, but
Yeah.
I go, you know, it's who I am. I'm true to what I'm all about. I don't.
Right. Yeah.
There's no denying. I don't hide it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I have fun with them. I wear them in the market, you know, and when
Yeah.
I go in and out, or you know, the post office, you know, they know who I am immediately with my
Sure.
mask.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all
But
right,
anyway,
Morelia. Thank you again. It has been
too.
a pleasure. I'm thankful that I know you, and you know, who knows, I may make it to Nashville one of
I
these
hope so.
days
I'll
and
show you around, definitely, and
come
hopefully,
in for a custom fitting.
oh yes, definitely, you need one,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, I'm glad that you've gotten to know you, and thanks for the
Absolutely. 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 And we will stay in touch. Keep me posted of, you know, what's going on, the book and all of that. And I will share it with, you know, with my community and let everybody know, for those that, you know, connected with your story, want to continue to follow you, want to see what you're doing next. Then yeah, keep me updated and I will make sure that I share it with everyone.
well, I
Okay.
appreciate it because it's hard to be a diamond in a rhinestone world.
Yeah. Yes. And you are immersed in a rhinestone world.